Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. In this video, I've been meaning to do for some goddamn time, so I'm gonna try to do this one. It's the Leviathan storyline. Actually, this video was requested some time ago, so I apologize for the delay. This video was actually kind of requested by @olderbrother21 on X, no longer Twitter. You know, I have to get the proper things. Not that I ever do. So, that being said, I will say that, as my cat tries to swat at me here, I will say that this storyline is like a fine wine. It it either ages well for some fans or it doesn't age well with others. And to be fair, I'm sort of in the middle of this. There's times at first when I first watched this, it's like there's a lot I don't like about it. And then when I came back and watched it back, I'm thinking, okay, there are things I do like about this, but I still don't like some of the things I didn't like about it. It's okay to go back and change your mind if your mind can be changed. Meaning, if you view something like this storyline, and I will get into what this storyline is about and what it is and what it isn't, it's okay to change your mind if you honestly feel the story wasn't as bad as you felt it was to begin with. And is that the case with the Leviathan storyline? Somewhat for me. And then again, I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, and it doesn't have to be. Not everybody has to love the same things, or like the same things, or don't like the same things. Or you could just meet somewhere in the middle, wherever you'd like. Now, what is the Leviathan storyline? Well, they're supposed to be taken from Cthulhu in a sense, because Leviathan are sea serpents that devour the damned. Um, they're taken from H.P. Lovecraft, or at least Dan Curtis is taking from H.P. Lovecraft. He wants his writers to do an H.P. Lovecraft storyline. Now, does that make sense? Yeah, it actually does when you think about it, because if you're getting into the nuts and bolts of Dark Shadows, number one, this is a gothic soap opera. So the question of did Dark Shadows jump the shark here? And I was @Older Brothers 21's question, and I wasn't avoiding the question, I was simply getting to it, as you could tell. My answer is no, because, and the reason I say no is if you're doing a Cthulhu type storyline like this is supposed to be, that actually makes sense here. And you might say, well, why does it make sense? Well, because, folks, if you've ever watched Dark Shadows, or if you've never watched Dark Shadows and you're just seeing this channel for the first damn time, Collinsport, Maine is a fishing town. This town was built by the Collins, founded and built by a member of the Collins family fictionally, but they built the biggest fishing fleet, the biggest cannery. So you have a fishing town that now has a nemesis or enemy from the sea, you know, on the surface of things, which that isn't necessarily the complete case, though, and I will get into this. So, the Leviathan, you meet two characters. Barnabas has gone back from 1897 to 1797, you know, when Josette jumped, although we say 1795 here on this channel. And again, does Josette jump? No. Barnabas actually saves her. Yes, Barnabas went back in time and didn't F it up. Good for him. Or didn't he, right? Because by this time, before you get into the Leviathan storyline, you have to understand there are now alternate timelines in Dark Shadows history, not just because of Barnabas. Victoria Winters and Barnabas. It's both their fault. I'm having fun, right? So our buddy Barnabas goes to Natalie Dupre gets used here to save Josette Collins, right? To save Josette Dupre Collins. So she does. Barnabas meets Josette, I should say, and they're going to be together. It looks like we're finally going to get the Barnabas Josette togetherness. Now, is Josette an idea? I do agree a bit with Gordon Dabowski in a sense she is, but I do think it gets to the point of over obsession with our buddy Barnabas. It really does, and that's a whole separate video I need to make, really, because there is a lot of obsession with Josette. Um, so you have Josette in the old house in her room, and she mysteriously dies of poison, gets sucked into the portrait. It's like what just happened here? What? Or sorry, she does die. So I think it's Katie Soames that gets sucked into the portrait of Josette also. Um, but Josette dies of poison, right? So now the Barnabas is on his way through the woods as a shortcut that he's taken 100 times or more, only to run into what looks like an altar, a stone altar, and it has a snake symbol on it. And you might say, well, is that what the Leviathan are? Are they snakes? You meet Oberon and Haza, who kind of appear human on the outside, but you can kind of tell, well, they're played by people, but they don't necessarily look the most human either. I say this because in a lot of ways, Alan, shout out to my buddy Alan Gallant. We kind of talked about this sort of in a video that, and Alan had mentioned this, that the Leviathan are sort of alien, and he's not wrong. They are to a degree. Now, when I say the word alien, I don't mean xenomorph. I don't mean they don't have like a tongue coming out trying to kill you. No, um, not that alien. Um, are they from outer space? Not necessarily. Just because we say alien here on the channel doesn't mean necessarily from your outer space. Alien is a completely different type of life form. That's what alien is. And that's what the Leviathan are, in a sense. They are underground. To be clear, they're not doing the complete sea serpent thing. They are creatures who live underneath the ground, according to Angelique, and I gotta believe her, who form, and again, this is the Leviathan speaking too, when they say about us, their form is it's so terrifying to man that no normal mortal can see it. But you also learn here that, okay, 1797, they can also come into the future. They can travel through time. So on the surface of things, you have creatures or aliens, if you will, that seem very powerful up front. And I will say, up front, good storyline. When you're looking at that, when you're starting off that, pretty good. Is making Barnabas Hill a mistake? Not completely. Again, I'll get into the pros before I get into the cons. And I'm going to definitely get into the pros because I'm not here to just completely shit on this. Because there are a lot of good things about the Leviathan storyline. But I do have to talk about the bad. The worst decision they make in this whole thing, I'm going to say it again, is not turning Barnabas heel. I can get with that. Okay? When you give your enemy, your heel, your antagonist, a reason of, oh, Josette's ghost? Well, we have her prisoner. And I go, okay. So to them, her spirit can't move on. Okay. Guys, gals, I know there are people who have not ever watched Dark Shadows. And I understand. I do. But trust me when I say this. Josette's spirit was never moving on. It had never moved on, okay? Ever. No, there's times we don't see it, but it had never moved on, ever. See Rachel Drummond. See Kitty Soames. Barnabas looked, every character that looked like the character Catherine Lee Scott played, Barnabas looked at that character like Josette, right? Because Catherine Lee Scott's character, Maggie Evans, looks like Josette, right? We've talked about this. Again, it's a whole other avenue I need to explore. I don't want to completely explore it here and get off track. The spirit appears like in episode 70, I believe. First makes its appearance in the very beginning episodes. And you get teases that the ghost is around, that there are ghosts in Collinsport, that Collinwood itself is haunted, that Widow's Hill is haunted by these widows, not just the four that jumped, but Josette herself. And yes, Widow's Hill was already a legend before Josette ever took that plunge, whether you blame Angelique or not. Yes, we all blame Angelique. Angelique put Josette under a spell to jump. That being said, the spirit of Josette had never really moved on. And the last time we really see her, if memory serves me correct, we see her when Barnabas comes back from like 1795 from saving Victoria Winters, I think, if memory serves me. I know we see her during the Adams storyline when Barnabas is buried alive. So her spirit does not move on. And just because the writers aren't using that character heavily doesn't mean the spirit has moved on. Can spirits move on in Dark Shadows? Yes. See Bill Malloy and Sarah. Those two spirits had moved on. For the most part, they had moved on. You had not seen or heard from them ever again since their conceived storylines. Josette, they sprinkled in here or there. And I do mean it was more there than here. It was very few. This is the writers playing with an idea of, okay, they have the ghost prisoner, right? They have the ghost spirit's prisoner. Now, we're going to say that the Leviathan have her prisoner. Well, the writers kind of make what many people call pivot, but I just call a lie. Because the moment you have an antagonist lie, and I get it's supposed to be evil. I don't disagree with Jonathan Frid that lying can be evil, but I think when you have a alien life form or alien entity that has clearly distributed some power, even before you get into this lie, ask, well, why are they lying? Because once they start lying, you got to understand there's two types of antagonists. There's a couple different types of antagonists lying. There's an antagonist deliberately lying, but hiding the lie. We're going to lie to you for the sake of lying to you so you don't know it, so you don't know one of our weaknesses. And that's sort of what the writers are playing with. The writers are playing with, okay, the Leviathan, which you're going to find out, deal in absolution. And you might say, that sounds like the Sith. Well, yeah, they sort of are. Their absolution is join us or die. They want more members. I feel, again, this is the second mistake. Because if you need a bunch of members, why are you want to take over the world by having human servants, which you don't need. You don't need. I mean, if you're going to have people, I get you want people to worship at your altar. This is sort of like Antichrist stuff, too. This isn't just Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's some religious stuff going on here in DS. I'll get into the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but understand when you're getting into a Jeb Hawks type character, that's Antichrist. And I'm not knocking Dark Shadows for that. If that's the route you want to go, okay. I have an imagination. I can see this. I actually like some of this. The problem I have is I've talked about the lying. Okay, to reiterate this, I discussed the first lie that that's what they're going to do. They're going to lie so you don't know the absolution. Okay, we kill somebody, you either join us or die. Here comes the rule change. A member of the Leviathan who's not Oberon or Haza, another member. So there's more actual Leviathan people. I'm not talking to people they recruit as members, the normal people. No, actual Leviathan who takes the form of a human, appears to Barnabas as Barnabas is in like a dreamlike state, and he says to Barnabas, "We have Josette's prisoner, but here's the thing. Here's the other. That's the now. It explains why Barnabas is doing bad things. That's the writer's sort of way of working Barnabas is evil. But here's the thing: Barnabas is actually enjoying being evil. Um, right. So now you hear, I think it's either it's David who is reading from the Leviathan book, that he says that if you kill one of our enemies, if you kill somebody, their angry spirit uh, can come back and hurt them. Now, hear me out. If you take a spirit prisoner, aren't you just going to piss it off? It's a contradiction. And I get, if ghosts are your weakness, you need to explain to me how. Because from what I've seen, I can't see how a ghost is your weakness. You could say, well, a ghost could possess them. Okay, they don't. When I say they don't, no ghost possesses Oberon, Haza, or Jeb. Now, people are going to say the shadow person, okay, that's not a ghost. That's a spell cast by Angelique, and that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. If you want to say it's supernatural, that's fine. Yes, a witch has supernatural powers. Angelique's a witch. Nothing has changed for Angelique other than her lousy marriage to Sky Rumson. Um, so, hey, it's very complicated to sit here and talk about this because it's not an easy thing to talk about. Okay. And I say that because I do like some of these things. Now, I actually like the character Sky Rumson. So let's get into some of the pros here, because I did address, to me, its biggest con is the ghost element. If you're going to because understand, if you're going to before I get into the pros, if you're going to deal in absolution, if you're going to deal in join us or die, you can't be afraid of ghosts. That makes no sense. And you have David who wants to abide by the rule book, Barnabas who wants to abide by the rule book. I get that's a work. I get that's him just stalling for time. But he's not the only one. That's the issue too. If other people, Leviathan members, are wanting to abide by the rule book, and Jeb is basically saying, take that rule book and chuck it out the fucking window, which basically he is, then what's the rule book for? Okay? Those are the biggest cons of the Leviathan storyline. Those not Barnabas being healed. You could work around that to a degree. You could do it a little differently. And again, I don't want to sit here and play Monday morning quarterback, so I won't. Now, what are the pros? First of all, the character development. I really love Megan and Philip Todd being recruited to who own an antique shop being recruited to raise the Leviathan child, or the, if you want, the Antichrist child, whatever you want to call it. Um, you have two brand new characters who are already kind of in a mid, somewhat of a storyline, because Dr. Julia Hoffman is looking for the portrait of Quentin. And I like the fact that it's in their antique shop. And in fact, they make, Megan and Philip make the effort to help her track down other paintings of Charles Delaware Tate. They ask around. So it's not just her, it's not just Professor Stokes. It's, you have people actually helping Dr. Julia Hoffman. Again, there's always more than one storyline going on in DS too. Um, should they have wrapped up the Quentin storyline? I think David Selby, Quentin in the Leviathan storyline just didn't belong there. He I'm not saying do a spinoff. Do a storyline within the show like you're doing, but don't have it be in Collinsport. If Dr. Hoffman has to go somewhere, shoot some exterior shots like you did in the past. Like maybe you shoot some of New York where she has to either go to New York or somewhere else because she's looking for other portraits of Charles Delaware Tate. That should have been her and Stokes' job. Again, I love Hoffman in the Leviathan storyline because she is badass in it. I'm not taking away from that character. But when you add Quentin into the mix, he kind of doesn't, he's kind of like the odd man out in this story. And he feels that way too. That's another con. The pros I mentioned, Megan and Philip. I love the kid actors in this storyline because they're very creepy and they're very eerie and scary. Even as a 43-year-old, they're very creepy and scary. I love Christopher Pennock's performance as the adult male, as Jeb Hawks. He's very menacing. He's very threatening. He's not afraid to kill people. And that's exactly what a heel should be. At first, he's everything a heel should be. They're hitting all the right notes with him. And then they do the ghost. They remind people of the ghost shit. There. When you ask me if this story jumps the shark, no. Jump the shark, no. Rides the rails very loosely, yes. There's a difference. Because you have a story that, okay, somewhat makes sense when you're dealing in absolution. And by people are like, what do you mean by not just join us or die? Okay. So the Leviathan don't just have their own, meaning they don't just have people who are coming up from underneath they don't just have their own alien life forms as their own members. They have actual human beings as their members. This is sort of where the invasion of the body snatchers comes into play. Okay, so they turn by turn. I'm not saying they're becoming alien. They're not. That's the biggest difference. This isn't completely invasion of the body snatchers where Joan Bennett's character is, I'm not saying she's not a different person. She is, but it's not like she can't change back. If the Leviathan are gotten rid of, Joan Bennett's character can change back. Like Elizabeth can change back. We see Barnabas already changing back because they've wrote him that way. Okay, so there's not a point of no return for some of these characters. Now, are there more loyal characters or more obedient characters in the ranks? Yes. The most loyal on the surface of things, I would say, and who should have been more your representation, no offense to Barnabas, should have been Sky Rumson. He should have been your major heel here. He's, again, I hate playing Monday morning quarterback, so I'm not trying to do it. He's Sky Rumson in name only. Sky Rumson isn't a child of Leviathan. He wasn't born like the way Jeb was, but he's from the ground and in appearance only. He explains to Jeb, not that this happens, this is what it is when you can manipulate the human race. That's where they should have gone. And again, I hate doing this. I don't, when I say I hate doing this, I don't love playing Monday morning quarterback. People who think I do, I goddamn don't. Um, because I do think the writers were very smart people. Again, you're trying to throw a lot of things together here, and some of it works. The creepy breathing works. The absolution works if to a degree when Jeb is allowed to kill, because with killing, there's no way back. If it's join us or die, keep it that way. If if you if you say you have a ghost prisoner, fine. I give you that. By the way, you also have Death roaming around. By Death, I mean Mr. Best in this storyline too, because Amanda Harris, who Quentin's in love with, she jumped off a bridge. He's got her soul. It would have made sense if somehow Mr. Best was woven into this somehow. It kind of I kind of wonder, was there a plan to weave death into this in a weird way? Because in some ways they, in a case when you're getting into the ghost haunting the Leviathan, kind of are. Because again, the spirits aren't at rest, right? They're not moving on. Okay, Paul Stoddard. I love that photo. I love that photo. That may be the thumbnail. We'll see. We'll see. Um, so I explained what. Now, do they devour people? I'm going to get into this because sea serpent. When you look up sea serpent, it devours the damn. Does anybody get devoured? Actually, yes. You don't see it, but Jeb Hawks get in the antique shop before Barnabas sets it ablaze. Jeb has his own room, which is where the Leviathan child has been staying. That makes sense. In that room, he can take his form. Now, I don't know what exactly about that room that makes it special. I think they put the box in it, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I'm old, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Um, they somehow prepare the room to it's prepared, right? I believe. Again, I'm going to get into the whole werewolf thing too. That was actually a good idea. Uh, Jeb can take his form. Now we don't see what that form is. Okay, I'll give you that. And anybody who steps in that room who's an enemy gets devoured, which I like. You have your devouring go on in a room. Cool. Um Now when I say the werewolf, this is sort of would have made a lot more sense if they stuck around to this. It also makes sense why Chris was changing even when the moon wasn't full. Maybe he's changing because the Leviathan are around. Maybe the werewolf is the natural enemy of the Leviathan. They even say this, but again, they don't make it to full fruition. They somewhat go down this road, but they don't completely go down it. I'm sort of with Alan. I wanted Jeb being chased by the werewolf. We don't get like the werewolf jumping through glass, like beating up Jeb. Like we get a moment that Jeb gets laid out by the werewolf. That's cool. That's really goddamn cool. I, I just wanted to see more of that. So again, some really good things here. Who are the heroes of the Leviathan? Well, that's the funny part. I mentioned some mistakes. I mentioned some great characters. There's a saying that every great the better the baby face, the better the heel, or vice versa. The bigger the heel, the better the baby face. And yeah, that is usually 9 out of 10 times true, but you got to understand, you can't turn every heel babyface. This is not professional wrestling. I love pro wrestling. I grew up with it, okay? I don't watch it today. But soap operas are a little like pro wrestling. They have their heels and they have their baby faces, and sometimes the heels become the baby face, a la Barnabas, a la Angelique. Angelique in 1897 gets to be a baby face. And yes, they're going to make her an ultimate baby face in 1840, which I understand why. But you can't do that to every single character. I'm not saying Dark Shadows does it to everybody, but you can't make every major heel a babyface just because you like the actor playing him. I love Christopher Pennock. He's way better as a heel. And again, I think he could play a babyface, but you don't need to make Jeb Hawks a babyface. I will credit a lot of characters. Again, I'll credit Christopher Pennock, Jeb Hawks, because yes, he is a very believable heel. Is he a believable babyface? Here's where Nancy Barrett, and I love Nancy Barrett, deserves a lot of credit because she's really the reason Jeb Hawks becomes a babyface. She falls in love with him and he falls in love with her. Basically, you're sort of doing a Beauty and the Beast, too. There's a bit of Beauty and the Beast here, with no flower and no castle, right? Uh, because Jeb is not born of mortal flesh, mom and dad. He's a child of Leviathan. The mark is on his arm, right? Okay. I get you want this character to fall in love with Carolyn. I get Nancy Barrett's character is absolutely beautiful. And yes, a man would fall in love with her. She's charming. She's very smart. She's rich. She has every quality a man would want. But it doesn't mean you turn your mega heel babyface. Again, I credit the writers for the writers always took risk. No matter, when Dan told him to do something or whether he didn't tell him to do something, they took risk. And a lot of those risks paid off. And they weren't afraid to take them. And I will applaud that 1000%. They deserve that credit. They took the risk. Was this story complete shit? No. No, it wasn't, because it had a lot of good moments. It had a believable heel. You just can't give your heel a ton of weaknesses. One at most. And you might say, well, wait, Barnabas as a heel had weakness more than one. Okay, that applies, yeah, if you're a vampire. Weaknesses depend on identity sometimes too. Okay, if Barnabas's secret is found out, he has a secret. That secret is a weakness, meaning you can't find out his secret. And if he finds out you found out your secret and it's nighttime, you're dead without the cross, right? The cross, sunlight, silver bullets, a stake through the heart. Those are Barnabas's 4 weaknesses, and you better be sure it's during the day when you find this out and you know where his coffin is. So those are things. Yes, some villains can have multiple weaknesses, or some baby faces. but it depends on the character in question too. A werewolf. If you don't know who the werewolf is and you don't have silver bullets or a wearing a pentangle, you have a problem. So those are three things. I can get behind that. They did not give. Why is Count Patofe and Judah Zachary and Angelique maybe the best heels? Because their weaknesses are very few. Their weaknesses are very few. That's why. Don't give the Leviathan a ton of weaknesses. Don't give them more than one. One only. Sometimes. And you could say, well, Angelique has more than one. All of Angelique's weaknesses really are all religious based. As long as a true witch hunter isn't after her, and as long as what is it? She doesn't get set on fire, which by the way, she keeps coming back. If you can keep coming back, then you're a dangerous heel, right? Well, that's Angelique. Uh, so again, you can't give a ton of weaknesses. So I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed. I will say I love the creepiness of the Leviathan. They are creepy characters. Um, I love the makeup look of them, of Oberon and Haza. Is it me, or does the third Leviathan member who appears look like Christopher Pennock? I'm not saying it is, but it looks like him a bit. I'm not saying it is. Um, so I do love the character of Jeb Hawks when he's a true heel, when he gets to be a true heel, because that's some of the best moments of a Leviathan. If you have a baddie, you have a baddie. If you have a bad guy, stick to him. My favorite type of heels in movies or shows are the ones that they don't pull back on. They go all the way. Because the bigger the heel, the better the baby face. And that rule has never changed. Ever. In the history of television and film, when has that rule changed? Never. Okay, yes, you can make some heels babyface. Barnabas, Angelique, Quentin, there are exceptions to the rule, but you can't do it with everybody. And that's just how it is. Um, Barnabas, Barnabas becomes more lovable during the Leviathan storyline when Jeb is your heel. When Jeb is your heel, Barnabas, you're rooting for Barnabas again. Christopher Pennock does not get enough credit for that. And again, great job. Great job. I love the character to a lot of degrees. I just did not love when they turned the character babyface because it's like, what was the point? If you're again, I get what the writers were doing. They were trying to get out of this storyline because it was hurting the ratings. So there you go. I don't believe this story jumped the shark. By the way, I mean, jump the shark. Henry Winkler was nowhere in sight. That's a Fonz joke. For those who don't know, Jump the Shark comes from when Henry Winkler, who played the Fonz on Happy Days, uh, was in the water, had a pair of water skis, and jumped over a shark that was inside of a net inside in water in the ocean. Hey, God bless Henry Winkler. God bless. Great character. All time, when you think about the Fonz, all-time great character. There are a lot of great characters on television. So and Dark Shadows was full of them too. It had a lot of great characters. A hippie guy. I try to think if I missed anything at all. I got the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Now, some members, we meet Bruno. We meet. Um, they recruit Nicholas Blair. Um, so we do, and we do learn that those members have their own greed to them. Now, is that another issue? I would say that if other members have their own vested interests, because you get that sense with Paul Stoddard too, that it's not just something that's made out of thin air. Paul Stoddard made a deal with the Leviathans, his most prized possession. So there are deals made with the Leviathan. Okay, if we give you this, you give us this. So there's some sort of equivalency exchange too. And I did that's something I almost forgot about. But I remembered it. It hit me. So there's some sort of equivalency exchange where we don't know exactly what we know. Sky Rumson had no luck. I don't know what Sky Rumson gave up for other than his. I guess what Sky Rumson did give up was he was loyal to them. He had to be loyal to them. Okay, and you kind of see he's enjoying being loyal to them. Again, I that's why I say I wish Sky was sort of you're more overseer than Barnabas. I think he could have been a better heel. I'm not saying he's a better heel than Jonathan Frid. I'm saying he could have been a heel without using the ghost storyline, and you could have kept the werewolf stuff. Just saying. Um, I do like the addition of Nicholas. I thought Nicholas was gonna, but it let me know. Hey, is the devil around? Is Diablos back? Back in business? He's always in business, according to hell. Uh, oh my god. Oh my god. So yeah, they Nicholas is just there because he wants a job. I mean that's what Nicholas is there for. By the way, Nicholas isn't giving up anything. He's just there. He's happy to be part of some evil scheme. Um, I do like the addition of Bruno. Very, very, very interesting. Um, but again, Jeb is such a badass. He puts Bruno in his place. Um, and Bruno crosses him for it too. Um, hey, hey. Uh, really, should you check out the Leviathan storyline? Sure, you should check out all the Dark Shadows. Um, it's a very unique show. It's a gothic soap opera. So, and it's horror. You know, it's it's a show worth watching. That's what Dark Shadows is. You know, period. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a great rest of your day.